president says a new leadership council has begun its work following the death of the supreme leader there. He says the council will continue the path of the country's previous leadership. The Israeli military says it launched strikes in the heart of Tehran, saying it eliminated dozens of Iranian leaders since the launch of Operation Epic Fury.
In the opening strike of the operation, the IDF eliminated 40 commanders and seniors from the Iranian regime in 1 minute. During the night, we continued and intensified the strikes across Iran. We are paving the way to the heart of Iran, up to the city of Tehran. We attacked the Iranian defense systems and expanded the air superiority of the Air Force in the skies above Iran. So far, we have thwarted dozens of missile launchers that were ready to be fired toward Israel's home front.
Israel says among the 40 commanders killed was Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces in Tehran. And an Israeli media outlet reports that former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was also killed. The Israeli Air Force posting video footage showing the destruction of the regime's headquarters in Tehran. The IDF says these are the first strikes under Operation Roaring Lion. That's the name Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave to the joint U.S.-Israeli attack. The military says the large-scale strikes yesterday helped establish air superiority, paving the path to Tehran. Israel's defense minister says planes are in stand-in operations over the skies in Tehran. He vowed a non-stop attack on targets in the city. In a Persian-language message on X, Netanyahu saying Israel would strike thousands of targets. He also urged Iranian citizens to overthrow their leaders. Iran firing another round of missiles across the Middle East today. The attack coming after Tehran vowed retaliation for the killing of its supreme leader. The Israeli Air Force says air raid alerts were activated in several areas, adding that it's working to intercept the missiles and remove the threat. Officials say the death toll from strikes on central Israel has risen to 6. 8 more people are confirmed dead in a direct missile strike near Jerusalem. Attacks also reported by Qatar, killing at least 16 people. And the UAE recording 3 deaths following Iranian attacks. Dubai's media office says debris from intercepted drones landed in the courtyards of 2 homes, injuring 2 people. President Trump warning Iran against further retaliation, posting on Truth Social that Iran threatened to strike harder than ever. If that happens, Trump says the U.S. will hit back with a force never seen before. The comments follow a report from Fars news agency saying members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are vowing revenge against the U.S. and Israel. Meanwhile, U.S. embassies and consulates across the Middle East are urging Americans to shelter in place. Americans in Bahrain, Israel, Iraq, Jordan, Oman, and Pakistan were told to take precautions. In a security alert, the U.S. Embassy in Qatar warned that Iran and its proxies could target Americans in retaliation. Non-essential personnel are advised to avoid military installations. The U.S. Embassy in Jordan urged Americans to stay indoors. The United States Department of State issued a worldwide caution alert, urging Americans abroad, especially in the Middle East, to follow guidance from the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate. Airspace over the Middle East region remained largely closed. Thousands of flights were canceled worldwide. And at least 9 people are dead and 25 others wounded in Karachi, Pakistan. Protesters tried to storm the U.S. consulate in the city. The unrest came hours after Iranian officials confirmed the death of Iran's supreme leader. Local officials denying reports that the consulate building was set on fire. Nations from across the globe are criticizing the Iranian regime while also voicing support for the people of Iran. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen saying there's renewed hope for the Iranian people after the death of the supreme leader. Japan's defense minister coming out in support of military action against the regime. He says it's crucial Iran does not obtain nuclear weapons. And the Prime Minister of Australia saying his country stands with the Iranian people in their fight against oppression. The uncertainty in the Middle East is also affecting global markets. Crude oil is up 10%, with the price per barrel now at $80. Analysts say it could even spike to $100. Some investors are now betting on gold, calling it a secure asset in times of uncertainty. And people in Iran and around the world are celebrating the death of the former Ayatollah. Footage shows them dancing in the streets in a city near the capital, Tehran. Residents playing cheerful music, shouting and celebrating. Iranians in exile taking to the streets as well. In Australia, waving American flags as they celebrate the military action. One man saying he's thankful for the United States and for Israel after they launched strikes, killing the former supreme leader. U.S. Central Command has confirmed that 3 U.S. service members have been killed and 5 seriously wounded. For deeper insight into Operation Epic Fury, we have with us now retired U.S. Marine Colonel Grant Newsham, who's a former diplomat and the author of the book When China Attacks. Also with us, Ruthie Blum, a former advisor at the Office of Prime Minister Netanyahu and a senior contributing editor at Jewish News Syndicate. Good to have you both with us. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I want to start with a question I'll put to both of you, but I'll start with you, Grant. The big picture, how are you seeing the situation today?
Well, it's still early. The war's only been going for 24 hours, so we do have to have some patience. But this has been 47 years in the making, and finally, after years of provocations and murders of Americans, American citizens, and other free people around the world by the Iranian regime, this is something different. And it took a real estate man from Queens, President Trump, to actually go in and go after Iran. But this is still very early, and there's a lot of work to be done.
Ruthie.
Well, I have to agree with Grant completely and take issue with the word retaliation. Iran was not retaliating by sending missiles. Iran has initiated since 1979, and it's not Iran, it's the Islamic Republic, it's that regime, has initiated terrorism, has fomented terrorism around the globe, has totally been a despotic regime to its own people, recently slaughtering tens of thousands of them. And, so actually it's not retaliatory. You could say that the West is finally retaliating against the Islamic Republic.
Yeah, very important distinction there, which, as you say, goes back a long way in this long, storied region. Why do you think, Grant, that Trump hasn't come out since his initial announcement so powerfully in the early hours of that attack, and yet so much has happened since then? What do you think he's waiting for?
Well, I think he's waiting to have more to say. It'd be good if the Americans could have a little patience and wait for this to play out. We've got a good military going after it. It's got a good plan, apparently. And the president doesn't need to be sort of duplicating the role of a news correspondent, giving us daily updates. So it's worth waiting a little while for that. I wouldn't read too much into it.
Perhaps we've just become accustomed to his regular appearances. Following on, though, of course, we just heard that tragic update about the American lives lost. Grant, does that change anything for the U.S. now that service members have been killed?
Well, it shouldn't. This is part and parcel of warfare. People get killed. There's no glib way to put it or nice way. America has been very fortunate to have large, either cost-free or casualty-free operations for a while, and to have, by sort of major war standards, really low casualties in Iraq and Afghanistan, unless you're one of them, of course. So we've gotten used to the idea that war is some ways like a big video game that happens somewhere else. People do get killed. There's probably going to be more of this happening. One sometimes is in awe of our parents and grandparents who went through World War II, when losing a few thousand people in an afternoon was something that happened a lot. So we'll see what we're made of. And
the Middle East has been fraught with conflict, but that has certainly been felt within Israel over the years. And Ruthie, is there a sense in Israel that all the brutality may be soon coming to an end?
Well, there is a sense of elation alongside nerves because we keep having to run to bomb shelters. There have been many, many sirens and missile attacks, etc. Not that we're not used to it, mind you. But there is a sense of elation. The sense is finally, okay, finally we're going to do the job. And I will say that it's interesting that President Trump, though he didn't make another speech or statement, public statement, he did post on Truth Social a response to what the Revolutionary Guard said. You killed Khamenei, and now we're going to unleash on you the worst, I don't know, the worst force you've ever seen, something along those lines. And President Trump responded in a post on Truth Social by saying, yeah, if you do that, you're going to be sorry. We are going to unleash the worst force you've ever seen, something along those lines. And I think that was very telling. And Prime Minister Netanyahu made a speech. Both Trump and Netanyahu appealed to the Iranian people. Basically, they were both giving the message. We're coming in to do the military side, and on your side, you're going to do the civilian side. We're going to help you from the outside so that inside you can topple this regime.
And how important is it? We've heard many accounts within Israel and beyond, people saying, okay, Trump promised that he would change the dynamic here with Iran, and he has. And he keeps his promises, and there's so much gratitude about that. Are you seeing that on the ground there in Israel?
Oh, definitely. Although, in Israel, like in the United States, of course, the opposition to the government is they're making sour faces. So those who are happy about it either say that this is all thanks to Trump and not at all thanks to Netanyahu. Or they're saying, this is just because of an upcoming election. It's like in the United States where they say, well, this will hurt the midterms or help the midterms. So, but I will say the general population in Israel is very thankful to President Trump and to Netanyahu, seeing that actually they both kept their promises over the years, that this is the culmination of something that's been in the works, especially from Netanyahu's side. He has been warning about Iran for decades. And President Trump, when he promised the Iranian people help is on the way, and then nothing happened for days and days and days, for weeks. I think many Israelis, me, myself included, we were getting nervous, that especially since they were negotiating and all that. And now he's made good on his promise.
Yeah, so Grant, looking at that trajectory there from the promise to the waiting to the responses, both skeptical and full of gratitude, what's your reaction there?
Well, now Mr. Trump and the Americans, the Israelis, and any other sort of free people who think it's important need to help and finish this off. This can't end with this regime still in place. What needs to be done is to go after the coercive infrastructure in Iran. And I don't mean hard buildings and hardware. This means to basically kill and otherwise humiliate the IRGC, the MOIS, the Basij, the militias, this coercive element. And otherwise, people are going to be very careful about going out on the streets. They did a month or two ago and got slaughtered. So this has to be an all-out effort, as I say, to remove the coercive infrastructure, to humiliate them, destroy them, so that people can go out and then take over their country. One should think about how one removes the mafia from a neighborhood. You don't do it by getting a little bit rough and then expecting them to become nice. Similarly, they may seem a tall order, but remember the East German Stasi that had all the guns and they disappeared. So it can be done, but it is going to take a lot of work and a specifically focused targeting of this repressive element that has kept the Persians just enslaved for 47 years, tortured them in the most foul ways you can imagine. So we're just getting started. This war has only been going a day, this fight, and we'll see if the civilized nations actually finished it off. But Mr. Trump has really stuck his neck out and has done something nobody else had the nerve to do. And obviously Netanyahu was there with him, but it was Mr. Trump who's actually gone after this, and we'll see where it goes. But this is, if you've been around a while and seen this from the beginning, and remember the tapes that were sent of former CIA station chief Bill Buckley, by the Iranians to the Americans of someone who was being foully tortured. And the Marines who got blown up in Beirut, the Jewish Cultural Center in Buenos Aires, it's about time. So we'll see, but this has to be finished off. There's no half measures as I see it.
President Trump certainly has pointed out that this is not just for the Iranian people. The Americans and so many others around the world have been targeted and affected by the cruelty and maligned intentions of the Iranian regime. But just in terms of the military strategy there, Grant, what would it take for the U.S. and/or Israel to take out the coercive infrastructure that you pointed to there?
Well, they have a pretty good targeting list of all of the IRGC headquarters and say every other element. And you need to go of the coercive sort of apparatus, and you go down to the neighborhoods and you destroy these buildings, the people in them, and then you find the top dogs, the people who matter, you hound them to no end, and you finish them off. If they're left alive with weapons, they're not exactly going to give up, but it is going to take a sort of a very sort of concentrated, systematic effort to remove the thing that has the Persian people enslaved. So yet, it's a target list. So.
All right. And yet, President Trump and others are calling on the Iranian people to step up now. And so, Ruthie, from your point of view, these people really are mostly unarmed. The forces against them are armed. It's currently still in place, mostly. What do you think they need to do, or what can they do in order to step up to answer this call that's been sent out by President Trump?
Well, actually, President Trump also said something very interesting. He said, it's very dangerous there. Stay inside. When what he meant was, at the moment, while all this bombing is going on and this war against the mullahs and the Revolutionary Guards and the Basij is going on, take care of yourself, hide out. And then when the coast is clearer, come back out into the streets. It's like once we've gotten rid of enough of the leadership and once we've destroyed enough of the infrastructure, then is the time you should take to the streets yet again.
Another tactic Trump has used trying to dismantle this regime is offering amnesty to people within the regime to step forward, to cross the line, come over to the side of the good. Do you think people might actually step forward and take that risk and go forth in trust? Ruthie?
Well, it's certainly possible. I mean, among the military. I'm not so sure about the Revolutionary Guards, although, it's possible that there are already anti-regime moles inside the IRCG. Why do I think that? Because many operations that were very delicate, pinpointed, and assassinations that have taken place would seem very unlikely that they could have happened without cooperation from inside. Mm-hmm. So this is not based on knowledge that I have. This is an assumption. So it is possible that some of the Revolutionary Guards will defect. They've already, in effect, defected. But the idea is to get more of the military on the side of the United States and Israel, and to say, and then the idea, I believe that possibly Trump has this idea, is that there will be an interim military government until a permanent government can be instated, mm-hmm. and hopefully the choice of the Iranian people.
Yeah, certainly so, and we hopefully we'll get to speaking more about that. But Grant, from where we're at now, as you mentioned, it's early days. The dynamics are certainly shifting very quickly. For the people who say do come forward and accept amnesty, do you think they can be trusted, considering how little the U.S. actually trusts the regime itself?
Well, sometimes, and this is what happens when these kind of regimes come down. It's not like we haven't seen it before. And with the right amount of pressure, and the removal of the dynamic, the equation inside the sort of the security forces. The regular army in Iran has been belittled and humiliated by the Revolutionary Guards pretty much forever. So there's plenty of resentment there. And it wouldn't surprise me if somebody has already talked to some people about what they might do when the time is right. And when you sort of reduce the capabilities of the IRGC and their minions, then suddenly people who actually are really patriots say, now we have a chance that we can go after these people. So these things have a way of breaking up in ways you don't expect. And it's very hard to predict how this will actually play out. But one would almost say whatever comes has got to be better than what we've lived with for nearly half a century.
And Ruthie, looking here at this situation of people coming forward, accepting amnesty, do you think the people of Iran would trust them?
Well, I believe they would trust them coming from the military more than from the Revolutionary Guards and the Basij. That's my assumption. Because, as Grant pointed out, they themselves have also been humiliated by the regime. So there is hope for that. What I do not believe in is negotiating with remnants of the regime. And I'm hopeful that President Trump will not be tempted in order to end this war prematurely. I won't be tempted to send Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner again, to negotiate with, I don't know, most of these guys are dead already, but, to negotiate with someone who represents the regime. I'm hoping that won't happen.
Now, looking at your main focus, Grant, at this point in time, where we need to look a lot at China in this equation, even though it's so far away. It is Iran's main purchaser of oil, and in so many ways, both regimes have been propping each other up. How much do you think these strikes and this conflict is actually about China?
I think if China didn't exist, I think we would still have to do the same thing. If you remember how Iran has been really killing people, causing all sorts of trouble since long before China became much of a player in the world. But now that China is here, Iran is its main sort of platform for operations in the Middle East, for causing trouble and sort of exerting its influence there. And to have it, this proxy, which Iran basically is, to have them getting hammered with China being unable to do anything, well, that's got to be a little embarrassing. And other countries that think China's their best friend are going to look at it as well and say, well, what'd you do when push came to shove? Not very much. But China's also always testing the will of their intended victims, and that particularly the United States, their main enemy. And they test it and retest it. And it looks like in the last few months that America's got plenty of will to defend itself and not to keep rolling over and making concessions to cut some sort of a deal with China. So I think they look at what's going on there. They don't like the looks of it as well. And there is the question of oil. Now that America's got pretty good handle on Venezuelan oil, if you remove the Iranian oil, well, at some point the Chinese start to sort of come up a little short with the energy that they need. So China looks at this, and I don't think they like what they see at all. But they've got a lot of sort of markers on the table throughout the world. So if Iran becomes free, it's not the end of China or the end of anything. But it is a win for the good guys if it plays out right. But this is really early now.
Now, looking at the broader Middle East, Ruthie, what is the current stance of the Gulf states? And do you think that changes if Iran continues to attack them, as it has in the last day?
Well, it's interesting. The Gulf states that are part of the Abraham Accords, they were at some point sort of sitting on the fence, certainly about an attack on Iran. And one of the things that most of the Middle East experts with whom I've spoken have said all along throughout the war in Gaza, that these states were eyeing Israel very carefully to make sure that Israel emerged victorious. Because if it didn't, they would have felt that they had attached themselves to the weak horse, not the strong horse. And part of their reason for signing the Abraham Accords, was to create an anti-Iran axis or anti-Islamic Republic axis. And the other was that they like winners. And so when there were moments when it appeared that Israel was weakening, they were hedging their bets. And even, for example, what you would see was Saudi Arabia, that was a very anti-Islamic Republic. Saudi Arabia was saying, we're going to meet with the regime. And so at the moment, what I think in the broader Middle East is what we're seeing now is the reason that those states are now saying, yes, we're on the side of the United States and Israel in this particular war right now, even though right beforehand, Saudi Arabia and the others, I think the United Arab Emirates, said to Trump, please don't do this. And now they're all gung-ho.
Yeah, they certainly are. Do you think that will change if they're hammered more, if the U.S. and Israel, say, can't get the job done?
Oh, well, I think that if they see the United States and Israel as weak or as having failed at this, then they might, yes, sing a different tune. But at the moment, in only 24 hours or 30 hours, so much has been accomplished. Yeah. And by the way, in the 12-day war in June, even that, there, you know, for decades, Israelis and Americans said, you can't poke the bear. You can't do anything with Iran because it'll just wipe Israel off the map and it'll unleash God knows what on the world. Yeah. And then we saw that it was more of a paper tiger than anyone had imagined. How quickly some B-2 bombers took out main nuclear facilities. And look what's happened in the last 24 hours. All the leadership is gone, not all of it, but the key players in it, and all kinds of infrastructure from the regime.
Fast developing.
You know, I have to say that Iran is showing itself to be weaker than we had all thought.
So much to inspect here. Thank you so much for your time, both Grant Newsham and Ruthie Blum. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
U.S. and Israeli forces continue strikes across Iran, targeting military command infrastructure as world leaders voice support. And Tehran launches counter-strikes across the region. We go now to NTD's Washington correspondent, Jack Bradley, live at the White House. Jack, good to see you. What's the latest on what the U.S. is calling Operation Epic Fury?
Good to see you too, Steph. Well, we are now in the second day of Operation Epic Fury. The U.S. and Israeli operations are expected to last for the next several days, if not weeks, as they're working to take out what's left of the Iranian regime. Now, U.S. officials have confirmed at least 3 U.S. military service members killed and 5 injured. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and several other top officials were killed in the strikes thus far, with Israel saying that over 40 Iranian commanders have been killed. Several world leaders have come out in support of the operation, calling the regime to lay down their arms and give up. Take a look.
The regime in Iran is utterly abhorrent. They have murdered thousands of their own people, brutally crushed dissent, and sought to destabilize the region. Even in the United Kingdom, the Iranian regime poses a direct threat to dissidents and to the Jewish community. It is vital that we prevent further escalation and return to a diplomatic process. We want to see peace and security and the protection of civilian life. Iran can end this now. They should refrain from further strikes, give up their weapons programs, and cease the appalling violence and repression against the Iranian people, who deserve the right to determine their own future in line with our long-standing position. This is the route to de-escalation and back to the negotiating table.
We support the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent Iran from continuing to threaten international peace and security. We are concerned about regional escalation and urge the protection of civilians. Australia stands with the brave people of Iran in their struggle against what is an oppressive regime. Ayatollah Khamenei was responsible for the regime's ballistic missile and nuclear program, support for armed proxies, and its brutal acts of violence and intimidation against its own people. This claimed countless lives in Iran, but also internationally. He is responsible for orchestrating attacks on Australian soil. His passing will not be mourned.
Other nations have also suffered from terror. So it is fair to give the Iranian people a chance to get rid of the terrorist regime, to get rid of and guarantee security to all nations that have suffered from terror originating from Iran. It is important that the United States is determined, and whenever there is American determination, global criminals weaken.
And we've seen some of the best videos coming out of the U.S. Central Command showing military assets, U.S. military assets, deployed throughout this operation thus far, and also what they've been striking. Now, they struck Iranian radar stations, drone sites that show them completely obliterated. U.S. is also targeting command and infrastructure control throughout Iran, not just in Tehran, but throughout the country. The U.S. military is striking Iranian military targets, not civilian infrastructure here, despite what the Iranian regime has been saying. We have also seen Iran fire short and long-range ballistic missiles throughout the Middle East. Now, Israel has had some casualties, at least 6 thus far, with an Iranian ballistic missile breaching that Iron Dome and hitting in Tel Aviv. But Iran struck other countries as well over the past day. Now, we've seen major damage at civilian sites like an airport and hotel in Dubai. Other countries Iran hit include Oman, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Bahrain, and their countries' officials condemning Iran. Watch.
We hold that the government of Iran is fully responsible for these attacks, and the kingdom rejects any justifications or explanations aiming at justifying these hostile activities that violate international law. We reaffirm our steadfast commitment to the principles and purposes of the UN Charter.
So it is clear they must never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon. That remains the primary aim of the United Kingdom and our allies, including the US. I condemn Iran's attacks today on partners across the region, many of which are not parties to this conflict.
And U.S. embassies and consulates throughout the Middle East are telling employees and American citizens to shelter in place. As for the White House, we expect President Trump to give updates throughout the day. I'm going to throw it back to you, Steph.
Great. Thank you so much, Jack. And joining us now is national security editor of 1945.com and the author of The Shadow War, Iran's Quest for Supremacy. Good to have you with us, Brandon Weichert.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Good, and so glad to be speaking with you. There's so much happening here, of course. What's your assessment of what we've just heard in terms of what the U.S. and Israel have accomplished in taking out Iran?
Well, clearly this is not going to be an isolated conflict. This is a truly regional war. The Iranians, are in a pickle because they obviously have to hit these U.S. military facilities that are located throughout the region, but it means they're, of course, attacking their neighbors. So now they're in a very, awkward position, if you will, where Iran absolutely needs allies, but they're aggravating everybody around them who could possibly be an ally. So in that way, it is a sticky wicket if you're an Iranian leader. At the same time, though, I want to make it clear the Iranians still have a little bit of fight in them. They are not totally down for the count. They have still been popping off missiles. They've been degrading radar capabilities of the United States and the Israelis and the Arabs. Now, we've been able to still maintain supremacy over the Iranians. But I do think it's interesting to note that that first phase of attacks, which was led by the Israelis, the U.S. did sort of a support role. We certainly had bombs that we were launching, but it was really that initially the Israelis took the lead. And I do think it's important to note that that first phase, a lot of the weapons we used were what's known as standoff weapons. In other words, we were firing from out of range of Iranian air defense systems, which indicates to me that there is still real concern on our part about some of those Iranian AD capabilities. One other thing I'll add, CENTCOM is reporting as of 34 minutes ago that 3 U.S. service members have been killed. They're not giving any more details out about that for the family's sake. I also know that the CENTCOM is now saying that, yes, 4 ballistic missiles were fired by Iran at the USS Abraham Lincoln. The CENTCOM is claiming they were deflected, never came close. But last night I was given a report that indicated the air-independent propulsion diesel-electric Fatah class Iranian submarine did get within range of the USS Abraham Lincoln, and it looks, unconfirmed, it looks like the carrier group, either a submarine or another anti-submarine warfare ship, managed to sink that submarine in the North Arabian Sea. And if that is the case, that means that Iran's naval capability is now severely degraded.
So let's talk more about those lives that were lost and the chain of command. Tell us about the confirmed dead soldiers, what we know about them, the roles that they played.
Yeah, so like I said, the CENTCOM is not giving many more details out. They said they're going to hold off for 24 hours for the family's sake. I suspect, and I don't want to put out anything too much, but my theory is this is probably from our facility in Bahrain. The Iranians have really focused a lot of their ire on that facility, and that's because we have a very important, very expensive radar there that allows for 360-degree long-range view for our air defense systems and the Arab air defense systems in the region. We rely on radars like that to basically allow for us to detect and have a good chance of shooting down incoming Iranian missiles. And I suspect if there is any KIA, it's probably from that facility, but we don't know. And I don't want to really get too much more into that because we don't know. But CENTCOM did confirm that those 3 people are KIA.
Yeah, very sadly so. But
it is.
But such a triumph for the lives that were targeted within Iran, those top officials. What do we know about them and the roles that they played?
So obviously we now know that the Ayatollah is dead. And we know that former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has been killed as well. I would like to point out, though, in terms of the Ayatollah, he was not really an operational leader. Pretty much since the 12-day war last year, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps and their military pretty much took direct operational control, both over the sort of foreign policy, national defense apparatus of the regime, as well as the domestic security apparatus. So basically, we got the Ayatollah. It is a win symbolically, but ultimately it's not really having a real impact on command and control. The Israelis have been able to assassinate a handful of senior IRGC leaders in their bunkers, which is causing confusion. But unlike the 12-day war, the IRGC, I think, is a little bit more hardened now, and they're a little bit more decentralized, which is why you're seeing definitely degradation of Iran's capabilities, but the Americans and Israelis haven't been able to get in that killing shot yet. And I think we're very much looking for it. Similarly, the Iranians are still in this fight, not as well as I thought they might have been, which is good for us, but they're still putting up a fight, which indicates to me that people should not be celebrating too early, because we're at the beginning of this thing, not at the end, and there's still a long road to go. The Iranians still have plenty of capabilities they have not brought to bear, and they very well may in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Okay, looking at who's left, it looks like, so Iran's top strategists are gone, but they're functioning perhaps with their B or C team. this succession going down to the next available group of people.
Yeah.
How do you see who's in the makeup of that group right now?
So to be mindful of this, I wouldn't say B team just yet, only because the people replacing them, yes, they're lower level, but in wartime environments, what we have found is that in many cases, those lower level people are more daring and risky and bigger risk takers. And this might be the most sort of dangerous group of people in the regime taking power. Now, again, their capabilities are degraded. It's not like they're operating at full capacity here, but I would be very careful with calling them the B team yet. We don't know yet. I think that these guys still might have a couple of moves left in them that could surprise us. And I think that all of our forces need to be very frosty right now. I would anticipate more people being injured and killed. I was seeing from certain Israeli sources yesterday that Tel Aviv is getting hit very hard. Yesterday, it looked like, unconfirmed, but the video was compelling, that the port of Haifa was hit by an Iranian missile. So some are getting through the defensive screen. And again, we are sending the B-2s. I was told last night, yes, 2 B-2s kind of replicated Operation Midnight Hammer, hit some suspected Iranian nuke sites. That's good, indicating we have at least a pocket of air supremacy over the country. Doesn't last long, though. So I would be very weary of writing off the Iranians just yet. I would say we're in the first quarter of this game, and we've got about 3 more quarters left, and we're not even at halftime yet. So the Iranians might still surprise us, and we definitely need to be frosty. And the threat to the carrier is still very significant, and I would be very worried about that. And hopefully we can protect that carrier.
And you mentioned some potential surprises coming from Iran. What kinds of surprises might you expect?
They have not yet expended any. I mean, I've been trying to keep account of this thing. They have not expended anywhere near the amount of long-range ballistic missiles that they've possessed. They've certainly not popped off their hypersonic weapons, which are limited compared to their missiles, but they haven't popped off their hypersonics yet. And the drones they're using intermittently. So either we have completely successfully scrambled their electronic control system, very capable, very possible that is the case. We don't know yet. Or the Iranians are still holding back and they're still reorganizing after losing those top-level leaders. Remember, during the 12-day war, the first 72 to 96 hours, Israel and the U.S. basically enjoyed air dominance over the country, but the Iranians were able to adapt over time. And so my concern is that the longer this thing drags out, the better it will be for Iran, which is why I'm being told by a colleague at the American Conservative that the administration apparently floated a ceasefire proposal through Oman last night that went unanswered in Iran, which indicates to me that I think Trump might actually be looking for an off-ramp possibly, because he doesn't want this to go for 4 weeks or 3 weeks. He wants this to be over sooner than later.
What would an off-ramp look like, considering that the Iranian regime, as Trump has enunciated so many times, cannot be trusted?
Yeah. I to be honest with you, I have no idea how that would work, because not only can you not trust the Iranian regime, but clearly the U.S. has used the canard of negotiations as a ruse to force the Iranians into a false sense of security. And then we tend to attack during those negotiations. I suspect at some point the Islamic Republic will not even be interested in negotiations, and we keep killing their leaders. So, it might be an instance where there's no one to negotiate with because we keep popping them off. So I have no idea what a negotiated settlement would look like, and I don't know if the Iranians ever could come to the table. And frankly, I know that Trump might want an off-ramp to this thing, but Trump also seems to be of two minds, where he's still doubling down and expanding the conflict. So I think we'll have to be in a wait-and-see mode on that one. I would be very dubious, though, of diplomacy working at this point.
And there's also the chance that the Iranian team may also be using that time, if they did accept a ceasefire, to just regroup.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. Both sides are doing that. I should make that clear. Both sides are absolutely using that. Absolutely.
So if they did accept it, what do you think they would use it for? Like, do you think that they didn't respond because there's no one there to answer, or perhaps they think they're in a strong position right now?
Well, I can tell you that from what I'm seeing, the Iranians are more confident than I thought they would be. To be clear, the Americans are and the Israelis are running the table on them. But like I said, the Iranians are not totally down and out. And so the Iranians have a sense of confidence about them, even after losing all these leaders. I don't think it's all for show. And I think this gets back to the capabilities they've got in the basement. What do they have in those underground missile cities that we can't hit with bunker busters because they're too hardened? And I think that they have some capabilities that they've been holding in reserve that they might start bringing to bear now. A key thing to remember is the Iranian strategy is basically a race to depletion. The Iranians figure, and I think they might be right on some level, the U.S.-Israeli Arab alliance only has a finite number of air defense capabilities before we run dry. So the Iranians, I think, are trying to keep their capabilities in reserve, deplete us enough, and then they'll throw everything at us once they feel our air defenses are no longer viable. We're doing something similar, though, where we're going in and we're trying to get them to fire their missiles at us so that they deplete them, and then we'll have greater overmatch over them. So it's really right now, interestingly, sort of this race to depletion. But I actually think the Iranians, if it just comes to a numbers game, I think they have more missiles than we have available air defense systems over a protracted period of time. So this is sort of worrying me.
In our last 30 seconds, you can continue with that, and also taking in the fact that Iran may have turned some of the other Gulf states right against it in its recent attacks on them. So do you think that could perhaps counterbalance this war of attrition that you've kind of pointed to?
I absolutely think that the Iranians are definitely not in an advantageous position. I would give the regime at this point 50-50 chance of either making it or not. And it could get lower, it could get higher. The next 72 hours are really going to be the key thing here. And I'm sort of in a wait and see mode with that.
All right. Thank you so much, Brandon Weichert.
Thank you.
Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in major strikes on Iran by the United States and Israel. What's next? We have more news and analysis shortly. Stay tuned.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure, natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
Hi, my name is Brady. When I was born, my parents thought everything was okay. My mom and dad were so excited to take me home.
I still get goosebumps telling this story. Several days in, his skin started to become very cold and clammy. We noticed that he had become blue around his mouth, and something was just very off.
We packed up as fast as we could. Brady stopped breathing twice on the way to the pediatrician, and that was one of the #1 things that just haunts me to this day.
I was born with a congenital heart defect called aortic coarctation. If my parents waited just 1 more hour to drive me to the hospital, I would not be here today. But thanks to research funded by the American Heart Association, I had heart surgery that saved my life. But not every kid is as lucky as me, which is why we need your help. Just call the number on the screen or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help. Get people trained in CPR. Get more hospitals certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. And help fund the next medical breakthroughs to help save kids like me.
When you donate to the American Heart Association, you're helping save lives like my son. And now my son is happy and healthy thanks to the support of people like you.
When you call with your $19 a month, you'll get this really cool t-shirt as a thank you. Many children die from congenital heart defects. I can't wait to grow up to become a heart surgeon and fix babies' hearts, but until then, I'll keep helping the American Heart Association. So please join me. Just call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org to become a monthly donor and help save lives.
Welcome back, and we are watching live footage here of Jerusalem. We're looking at the skies of Tel Aviv, which have recently been struck multiple times. And we're looking at, Jerusalem. Live feed there of the skies where attacks have been made by Iran. Iran, of course, the regime there, vowing retaliation for the attacks that the U.S. and Israel coordinated against the top brass of the regime, taking out the leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. That, of course, took place just Saturday. We are mere hours from that attack, and already we've seen a barrage of attacks across the Middle East from Iran, striking multiple other countries, neighboring countries in Gulf states, in what the regime is hoping will turn into a weathering away of forces and strength by the U.S. And a historic first on some of the combat vehicles used in Operation Epic Fury. The United States Central Command announcing the first time use in United States military history of one-way attack drones. And I'm just getting word here of an update, which we will be bringing to you very shortly. But first, NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu has the details on that.
This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is touting Operation Epic Fury as the most lethal, most complex, and most precision aerial operation in history. He says, quote, "The Iranian regime had their chance, yet refused to make a deal, and now they are suffering the consequences. For almost 50 years, Iran has targeted and killed Americans, always seeking the world's most powerful weapons to further their radical cause. Last night, unlike any previous president, President Trump began dealing with this cancer. We will not tolerate powerful missiles targeting the American people. Those missiles will be destroyed, along with Iran's missile production. The Iranian Navy will be destroyed, and as President Trump has said his entire life, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. The United States did not start this conflict, but we will finish it. If you kill or threaten Americans anywhere in the world, as Iran has, then we will hunt you down and we will kill you. Our warriors are the best in the world, and they are fully unleashed to achieve our objectives. May God's providence protect them in this vital mission." And Admiral Brad Cooper, CENTCOM commander, says, quote, "The president ordered bold action, and our brave soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen are answering the call." Central Command is also announcing a historic first. that its task force, Scorpion Strike, for the first time in history, is using one-way attack drones in combat during this operation. CENTCOM says, quote, "These low-cost drones, modeled after Iran's Shahed drones, are now delivering American-made retribution." Before this, the Pentagon mostly relied on high-end missiles such as Tomahawks for big strikes. Those are reusable, expensive, and piloted remotely. These new ones, though, called Lucas, Low-Cost Unmanned Combat Attack System, are disposable. They fly one way, slam into the target, and explode like flying bombs or kamikaze drones. In short, the U.S. is taking a page from Iran's playbook, taking cheap technology that Iran has exported to cause chaos and using it against the regime. CENTCOM also giving us details on the timing of the strikes, saying that U.S. and partner forces began striking targets at 1:15 a.m. Eastern to dismantle the Iranian regime's security apparatus, prioritizing locations that posed an imminent threat. Targets included Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps command and control facilities, Iranian air defense capabilities, missile and drone launch sites, and military airfields. U.S. officials are saying that the U.S. is focusing on military targets, on ballistic missile sites, and on anything that could pose an immediate threat, while the Israelis are targeting Iran's leadership. Central Command is also countering claims the Iranian regime has been making in the wake of these strikes. The IRGC claims that a U.S. Navy ship was struck by missiles. However, CENTCOM says no U.S. Navy ship has been struck. The Armada is fully operational. And the Iranian regime is claiming severe damage at multiple U.S. bases. However, CENTCOM says damage to U.S. installations was minimal and has not impacted operations. Reporting by Mariotsu, NTD News.
Thanks for tuning in to our live special coverage of the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. We'll have more coverage in the next hour. I'm Stephanie Cox. Stay tuned.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
And here we are with a live feed of Jerusalem, where much has transpired over the last 24 hours or so. We've seen retaliatory strikes from Iran, Israelis down in their bunkers with sirens, warning sirens going off multiple times throughout the last day. All this transpiring after the United States and Israel carried out coordinated strikes on Iran early Saturday, resulting in the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Many updates since then. We've heard 3 American troops have been killed in the Iranian operation. We've got Israel calling up 100,000 reserve soldiers to prepare to fight. And a top Iranian diplomat is saying the country's military is intact. Of course, President Trump is also calling on the Iranian people to step up and take the reins now and bring down the regime under which they have suffered for decades. Looking there now at Jerusalem. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon. It's March 1st. You're watching NTD's special coverage of the U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran. I'm Stephanie Cox. 3 U.S. service members killed in action as part of military operations against Iran. In a statement today, U.S. Central Command says 5 others were seriously wounded. The announcement confirms that major combat operations continue. The identities of the soldiers will not be released until next of kin are notified. And Israel and Iran are trading strikes today. The war now widening after the killing of Iran's supreme leader in the U.S.-Israel joint operation. Meanwhile, President Trump warning against retaliation from Iran. Here's what we know right now.
Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in massive U.S. and Israeli strikes on Saturday. Iranian state media confirmed that the 86-year-old leader had been killed after initially denying reports of his death. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Khamenei was no longer alive.
For 3.5 decades, this tyrant dispatched terrorism across the world, made his own people miserable, and worked constantly and tirelessly on a program to annihilate the state of Israel. That plan is there no longer, and there are many signs that this tyrant is also no longer.
Netanyahu also said Khamenei's compound had been destroyed, and Revolutionary Guard commanders and senior nuclear officials had been killed.
They will never have a nuclear weapon.
In an early morning address, Trump said the strikes on Iran were aimed at ending a security threat, and he called on Iranian security forces to lay down their weapons and invited the Iranian people to topple their government once the bombing ended.
When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
Tehran responded to the attacks with missiles fired at Israel and at several Gulf Arab allies of the United States that host American bases. Explosions from Saturday's strikes caused widespread panic across the region. A video showed the moment of a strike near a U.S. Navy base in Bahrain. In Israel, sirens sent people rushing to shelter as Iran launched a series of missiles. Loud booms sounded in Abu Dhabi, and several blasts were heard in the business capital, Dubai, where one of the city's plush hotel districts was also hit. Tehran promised a stronger response to come.
Iran's president says a new leadership council has begun its work following the death of the supreme leader. He says the council will continue the path of the country's previous leadership. U.S. forces struck an Iranian corvette, that's a small warship, during the start of the operation with Israel. In a post on X, U.S. Central Command says the ship is sinking to the bottom of the Gulf of Oman. The post repeats President Trump's earlier message saying members of Iran's armed forces, the IRGC, and police must lay down their weapons. The post ends with the words, "Abandon ship." U.S. Central Command also posting on X that Iran's claim it struck the USS Abraham Lincoln is a lie. The post says the aircraft carrier was not hit and that Iran's missiles didn't even come close. And President Trump said the U.S. knows how many targets are left in Iran. That's according to Fox News White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich, who briefly spoke with Trump this morning. As for the process toward Iranians taking control of their destiny, Trump said it's moving along rapidly. Trump also saying that nobody can believe the success the U.S. is having with 48 Iranian leaders gone in one shot. The president adding that he's not concerned about the oil prices or the operation's impact on the Strait of Hormuz. He said he just does what's right, and in the end it works out. Trump citing the success of the operation to capture Venezuela dictator Nicolas Maduro and the earlier attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities with B-2 bombers. The president also noting if the U.S. did not do that, Iran would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks. Now that the Ayatollah is gone, though, what are the prospects for Iran? Joining us now is Andrew Harding, a senior associate for national security coalitions at the Heritage Foundation, and also with us, Joan Leslie McGill, executive director at the U.S.-Israel Education Association. Thank you so much both for joining us today. I'd like to start out with your sense of the big picture, where we're at today. Andrew, give us your take.
Well, I think in the past 24 to 48 hours, we've seen great success with Operation Epic Fury, of course, with the removal of the Ayatollah, but additionally, more than 40 senior officials, and we're seeing continued strikes that are taking out Iranian security facilities, military equipment, different assets within Iran that allows for the United States and Israel to be safer. It allows the Iranian people the opportunity, as the president noted on Saturday, to take their government, to take control of their own destiny, forward to a more peaceful Middle East. Of course, this is a long way to go. We are, as we're seeing, a new leadership council forming in Iran, and the president believes there is an opportunity to potentially talk with them. They have an interest in speaking, so we'll see where potential new diplomacy. But as it stands, the operations had a good success for American security interests and should continue that way for the days ahead.
Joan, as you see it.
Well, as I'm watching all of this, I'm looking at the larger geopolitical implications. First of all, in the Middle East, you are watching Iran become an isolated nation. This regime is becoming so isolated as they're targeting other Arab countries in the Gulf and the Middle East. And you're watching this alignment towards the United States and Israel, towards the axis of good against this Iranian evil regime. I think this is very powerful and can't be overstated, that Iran has really overplayed their hand by attacking these other Arab countries in the region. So that's one thing that I'm watching. Also, in the larger geopolitical context, really looking at how the rest of the world is going to respond to this. President Trump has done an amazing job of posturing deterrence. It's a very credible deterrence. So you look at Russia, they're definitely going to be recalculating. China is going to be recalculating. There are a lot of broader geopolitical implications at work here.
And Andrew, when we look at what's happening right now, there's been a possible move towards having a ceasefire. Of course, the strikes still continue, but there's inklings that that there could be more diplomacy. Do you have any hope for that?
Well, I certainly would have hoped to see with a successful resolution that's in America's security interest, but that's the underlying factor here. Any type of resolution, whether we're looking at a diplomatic solution or as we're seeing now, a military campaign, needs to advance American interests. As we've seen with the start of Operation Epic Fury, these strikes that have occurred have been advancing American interests. The American people are safer with the removal of the Ayatollah and his senior leadership around him. The American people are safer knowing that we're able to take out, say, the Iranian military or the Navy. We also know in the Middle East to see a safer region with Iran trying to fund and support terrorist proxy cells that have a particular target on Israel. But we also know there could be sleeper cells here in the United States that we have to remain very vigilant for. So I think if there is a legitimate diplomatic proposal that can advance American interests, it's better late than never. But as it stands, this military campaign has been successful and will likely continue unless Iran seriously comes to the table with a legitimate proposal that makes America safer.
Nothing's been agreed to yet in all the years of diplomacy. Joan, do you see a sense that this could potentially lead to some kind of diplomacy, some action in that direction at all?
Unfortunately, I do not. I do not believe that what is left of this Iranian regime wants to negotiate. They've never negotiated in good faith. And because they are motivated by this radical religious ideology, they don't think in rational terms the way the rest of us would. And so I don't believe there is really an option for diplomacy. And I also believe that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, in pressing the go button on these operations, knew that there is no turning back. We are not going to be able to end this strike until and they've said, until we have achieved a secure peace inside of Iran. So I believe the window for diplomacy has passed. And again, like Andrew said, if there was a legitimate diplomatic solution on the table, I could see President Trump definitely considering it. But I don't believe there will be a ceasefire before that has been agreed to. I think we know that ceasefires are not peace. It is just the cessation of fighting. So I don't believe we'll see any kind of ceasefire come into place until there's a real alternative on the table.
And it looks like the projected timeline for this war is already shifting from what was meant to be a few days to something much longer. Of course, we'll have to see how it plays out. But Andrew, what if it is prolonged. Talk to us about how U.S. allies are reacting.
Well, I think, as Joan mentioned earlier, the Gulf allies and partners are really working with the United States and Israel in opposition to this Iranian threat. It doesn't help that Iran is shooting missiles at practically anyone in the region. The idea perhaps being a strategy to escalate to de-escalate. The idea that this war would be too costly for the United States and Israel to continue and put pressure on these countries to come to some type of negotiated settlement, maybe a ceasefire. But I think, and as previously mentioned, I think it's correct that this is backfiring. So I think with the region, we're seeing Saudi Arabia explicitly support operations against Iran. We're seeing the Gulf countries openly suggesting that Iran's attacks are violating their sovereignty, that they're willing to work with the United States. And ultimately, say if Iran's partners, we're looking on the flip side, all China's really done publicly is denounce the strikes. They're not really demonstrating how useful a partnership with the Chinese is here. So I think the United States and Israel, with its Gulf partners and allies, should it continue for weeks ahead, are in a strong position to continue this pressure and ultimately get some type of solution that helps American security interests and ideally provides a more peaceful and stable Middle East.
And Joan, with your insight into what's happening there on the ground through your organization, the U.S.-Israel Education Association, what are you seeing of the sense on the ground there in Israel? How are people feeling about the death of the Ayatollah? You know, is this a sense of the end of a nightmare? Because that regime really has inflicted so much torture across the region.
Absolutely. I actually just got back from Israel on Monday, so I've been over there for a couple of weeks. All of this is very fresh for me. It's a very complicated situation for the Israelis because on one hand, they are no doubt celebrating the fall of this horrendous regime who has stalked Israel on all sides through their terrorist proxy groups. That's so fresh from these past 2.5 years since the October 7th invasion by Hamas. But on the other hand, this is a country that has a lot of war fatigue. So even this morning, I was texting with friends who live in Israel, and they spent the whole night running back and forth between bomb shelters. This is very, very fresh for them as they've been under this kind of stress for 2.5 years. So there's also this desire for them to have some sort of semblance of a normal life. And the hope is that once the U.S. and Israel fully deal with this Iranian regime, then there is hope for a future for them to move forward, no longer under constant threat from Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Iranian regime. So it's very complicated, but they're obviously extremely excited.
Yeah, I'm sure hopes are very high. It does look to be a very successful start to this war. What do you think are the Israeli people's kind of appetite for war at this point? There must be a lot of fatigue around how much they've had to spend time in bomb shelters and suffer already the losses since October 7th.
Yes, they're very tired, but also there is an amazing spirit of resiliency inside of the Israeli people. When your country's entire existence has been formed around fighting for its right to be there on the land in the region, it's a different type of ethos that makes up the Israeli people. So yes, there is the fatigue, like I said, but there's also great hope for the future. I think that if you look at Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump, I don't foresee them putting boots on the ground in Iran, either of them. I don't see them having any kind of ground invasion. And I believe that they would not have kick-started these strikes if they didn't have the long goal in mind. So, you know, as you were mentioning, we do see this lasting a little bit longer already than we expected, going from days to potentially weeks. But I have to believe that was already accounted for in the battle plans. And so I don't think you'll have troops on the ground from either country. And I think you'll see them have this consistent effort from land and sea that we've been seeing, and that it will hopefully resolve in the coming weeks. And the Israeli people, along with the Iranian people, will have peace for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah, and just looking at these shifting dynamics within the broader Middle East region, Andrew, do you think an alliance with the Gulf states will continue without Iran? Could this be a kind of fundamental reshifting of alliances here?
Well, I think it's very possible. We know under the first Trump administration, a lot of work was put into this with the Abraham Accords, to where there was a very good alliances being developed, good partnerships opening up between Israel and Arab states, and normalization of relations. I think we're seeing, say, today and over the weekend, how Iran has caused these problems, how they've hurt other states in the region, including Saudi Arabia. They're willing to strike other countries that aren't even directly trying to hurt Iran or attack Iran, as we've seen of some of the missile retaliations that Iran and the IRGC has conducted. Even with a changed Iran with a new regime, it does offer an opportunity potentially for integration of Iran into, say, different economic partnerships. There's certainly a lot of economic potential in Iran. We certainly talk about oil and energy resources a lot. There could be a new opportunity here to really not only have a peaceful Middle East, but a prosperous Middle East, a strong regional integration, working through common issues together, and opening a new door of relations for the Middle East and how the United States could work with countries here. So, of course, it remains to be seen. As we've mentioned earlier, there are still many weeks and perhaps months to go on understanding what the leadership will look like, what deals are negotiated, if any at all, and the results of these strikes. But there certainly is a good potential for the Gulf and the broader region to come together in the months ahead.
Commerce over chaos, as President Trump has put it, promising a brighter future for the region, but also looking here at the relationship between Iran and Israel, because they were actually allies before 1979 and the regime took power. Can you imagine, things going back to that kind of state where they can actually surpass all of the trauma and even the ideology of this death to Israel that was brought in and really amplified during that time?
I think it's possible, but something like that would certainly take a long time. Understandably, when you have a regime that's targeted you for multiple decades, there's a lot to work through, to say the very least. Where I am optimistic is with President Trump's leadership and his focus on achieving peace, not only in the Middle East, but throughout the world. You certainly can find President Trump being in your corner when it comes to having good negotiations, having win-win deals, and resulting in economic, cultural, even security partnerships down the road. So I'm optimistic that depending on how things shake out in Iran, seeing how the leadership may be with what, if any, deals are made, we could see a new era of Middle East relations that could result in some type of better cooperation with Israel, Iran, but also the broader Middle East. So President Trump at the helm, I'm certainly optimistic in that possibility.
Yeah, and Joan, looking at the appetite of the Israelis for moving forward here, there's, of course, a lot of justified trauma that's taken place since what happened on October 7th, including that day. They really thought that Hamas was not going to be aggressive, and it just betrayed their trust there. Will that factor in if a lot of the IRGC is still there?
It's a great question. The demographic makeup is a little bit different from Hamas in the Gaza Strip, where Hamas has completely infiltrated the entire population. So you have a whole population group that is radicalized and majority supporting this terrorist organization. In Iran, it's a little bit different because you actually have the majority of the population that does not support the terrorist regime. Of course, you do have the radicalized Shia population, but they're the minority. So it's a little bit different. We have a long time to go before we get here, but when you start looking at regime change, de-radicalization coming in, all of that will be a part of the future, but it is different than the makeup of Hamas and the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. So I believe the Israelis are actually going to look at this with a little bit more optimism and hope for the future. You have to remember there were thriving Jewish communities inside of Persia for thousands of years. And only recently, in the last 100 to 200 years, were they uprooted and kicked out and have not been welcome in modern day Iran. And so I think there's a real hope to go back and restore those ties and relations. And as you're all saying, an incredible economic opportunity for the Middle East looking forward, as Iran is sitting on one of the world's highest oil reserves. It's a tremendous opportunity. And I think the Israelis recognize that and they want to be a part of it.
Andrew Harding, Joan Leslie McGill, thank you so much for watching history unfold with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in major strikes on Iran by the United States and Israel. What's next? We have more news and analysis shortly. Stay tuned.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun returns to David Koch Theater, March 25th through April 12th. Get your tickets now at shenyun.com.
With Select Specs £6 specs, you can get 10 pairs of prescription glasses for just £60. That includes frames, prescription lenses, and delivery free to your door. And what makes this really special is each pair can have a different prescription. So it's glasses for everyone. SelectSpecs.com/£6. 10 frames, all with prescription lenses and delivery for just £60. You don't get that on the high street. Right now you can save an extra 5% with offer code CG5OFF.
For the first time ever, we're bringing you MyPillow mattresses and mattress toppers for as low as $99.98. Remember, sleep's all about temperature and pressure points. Whatever sleep needs you have, we have the right technology for you. Like our MyPillow mattress topper, our queen size has over 10,000 individual comfort supports to help relieve your pressure points. And how about our 3-inch Hybrid Plus mattress topper? It's infused with copper and silver to help your body get the restorative sleep it needs. And our MyPillow and Case Coil mattresses, I personally helped develop these mattresses to make sure they have everything needed to give us great sleep. Plus, they're made right here in the USA, and they ship right to your front door absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to get MyPillow mattresses and toppers for as low as $99.98 and free shipping.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
And it's just past 7 p.m. in Tel Aviv, and you're watching our live special coverage of the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. You can see that live footage there. The U.S. and Israel continuing their military operations as the conflict with Iran intensifies. In Washington, lawmakers celebrating the death of the Ayatollah, but clashing over continued operations. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us live. Jack, how are lawmakers responding to all this?
Well, reactions from Congress have fallen along party lines, most Republicans praising, most Democrats condemning President Trump's decision. Now, that's even though most Democrats are in support of a regime change in Iran, celebrating the death of the Ayatollah. But prior to the start of the operation, Epic Fury, we had congressional Democrats and Republicans of the Gang of Eight. They were briefed, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio briefed 7 of the 8 before the operations began. But here's what they're saying now. Watch. Now, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling on Congress to return to Washington as soon as possible to vote on a war resolution that would later limit President Trump's authority to continue out these strikes. Now, some Democrats aren't confident that this will happen. We have Congressman Thomas Massie, Republican, Democrat Ro Khanna, also forcing a war powers resolution to the floor later this week. So we'll take a look at that when it comes out. Steph.
People that are on the outside need to understand that we've been the first victims of the Iranian regime's brutality for almost 50 years. So we know the brutality that we have to deal with the government that's in Iran that does not represent the people. We don't want a theocracy anymore. We want the separation of church and state. We want democracy, the end of terrorism, and we want the world to pay attention and be with us. And the leaders of this movement, which is Reza Pahlavi, the Crown Prince of Iran, has made it absolutely clear that the only way forward is a transition where the Iranian people can have a referendum and vote for a democratic system that's free and clear of religious ties.
Now, right there, you saw a demonstrator in Los Angeles as we're having demonstrations in favor of U.S. and Israeli strikes across the country in Iran and here in the U.S. Steph.
And Jack, we're seeing demonstrations across the country celebrating the death of the Ayatollah and calls for regime change. I see we had some comments there. Any further and latest updates?
Sure, yeah, over in New York and Los Angeles, and even right here outside of the White House, we're having these protests, pro-regime change in Iran protests taking place. But we also have the U.S. Central Command today saying that 3 U.S. service members have been killed in action and 5 seriously wounded as part of this Operation Epic Fury. The names of those 3 Americans have not yet been released, but we'll keep you updated as the information rolls out. I'll throw it back to you, Stephanie.
Jack Bradley, thank you so much. And the United Nations holding an emergency meeting late yesterday over the strikes on Iran. A number of nations condemned the actions while calling for diplomacy. U.S. Ambassador Mike Waltz reminded the Council of the atrocities that Iran has committed.
The sad irony is that this same regime will attempt to lecture us today about human rights and the rule of law. Its presence here in this council makes a mockery of this body. But where the UN lacks moral clarity, the United States of America will maintain it. This is a moment in history that requires moral clarity, and President Trump has met the moment. The most fundamental duty of any sovereign government is the protection of its people.
Iran's ambassador accused the U.S. of distorting facts, relying on misinformation, and violating international law, while calling the attacks unprovoked. Israel's ambassador, in response, had one question for him.
For 47 years, the Islamic regime in Iran has led crowds in chanting, March bar Israel, March bar America. Mr. Iravani, do you want to translate these chants? Your leaders have been chanting it for years in public events, in your parliament. March bar Israel, March bar America. They mean death to Israel, death to America.
Ambassador Waltz, in exercising his right of reply, disagreed that their actions were inconsistent with international law, while noting that the Iranian people were currently celebrating in the streets. And Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in major strikes on Iran by the United States and Israel. What's next? We have more news and analysis shortly. Stay tuned.
If you love them enough to drive an hour to cheer them on as they get beat 11-0 in the rain, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the-right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
For the first time ever, we're bringing you MyPillow mattresses and mattress toppers, $9.98. Remember, sleep's all about temperature and pressure points. Whatever sleep needs you have, we have the right technology for you. Like our MyPillow mattress topper, our queen size has over 10,000 individual comfort supports to help relieve your pressure points. And how about our 3-inch Hybrid Plus mattress topper? It's infused with copper and silver to help your body get the restorative sleep it needs. And our MyPillow and Case Coil mattresses, I personally helped develop these mattresses to make sure they have everything needed to give us great sleep. Plus, they're made right here in the USA, and they ship right to your front door, absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to get MyPillow mattresses and toppers for as low as $99.98 and free shipping.
It is just past 7 p.m. in Tel Aviv, and you're watching there our live special coverage of the U.S.-Israeli strikes, where we're looking at Jerusalem right here on screen. And an update now on the ongoing U.S.-Israel operation against Iran. The IDF says all senior terrorist leaders of Iran's axis of terror have been eliminated. The Israeli military posting on X the names of the officials killed so far. Israel says among the 40 commanders killed was the chief of staff of the Iranian armed forces. And an Israeli media outlet reports that a former Iranian president was also killed. The Israeli Air Force posting video footage showing the destruction of the regime's headquarters in Tehran. The IDF says these are the first strikes under Operation Roaring Lion. That's the name Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave to the joint U.S.-Israel attack. The military says the large-scale strikes yesterday helped establish air superiority, paving the path to Tehran. Israel's defense minister says planes are in stand-in operations over the skies of Tehran. He vowed a non-stop attack on targets in the city. In a Persian-language message on X, Netanyahu saying Israel would strike thousands of targets. He also urged Iranian citizens to overthrow their leaders. Iran firing another round of missiles across the Middle East today. The attack coming after Tehran vowed retaliation for the killing of its supreme leader. The Israeli Air Force says Iran raid alerts were activated in several areas, adding that it's working to intercept the missiles and remove the threat. Officials say the death toll from strikes on central Israel has risen to 6. 8 more people are confirmed dead in a direct missile strike near Jerusalem. Attacks also reported by Qatar, killing at least 16 people, and the UAE recording 3 deaths following Iranian attacks. Dubai's media office says debris from intercepted drones landed in the courtyards of 2 homes, injuring 2 people. And President Trump is warning Iran against further retaliation, posting on Truth Social that Iran threatened to strike harder than ever. If that happens, Trump says the U.S. will hit back with a force never seen before. The comments follow a report from Fars news agency saying members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are vowing revenge against the U.S. and Israel. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the Israeli Air Force is intensifying strikes in the heart of Tehran. Take a listen.
Yesterday, we eliminated the tyrant Khamenei. Together with him, we eliminated dozens of senior officials in the regime of oppression. Our forces are now striking in the heart of Tehran with growing intensity, and this will only increase in the coming days.
Netanyahu saying Israel is bringing the full force of its defense forces as never before with the help of the U.S. He says the combination of forces enabled them to strike the Iranian regime, something he'd hoped for 40 years. Israeli President Isaac Herzog now urging the people of Israel and the entire region to stay strong during this historic effort to reshape the Middle East.
This is a historic effort to change the trajectory in the Middle East to a different future, a future of peace. We've been for generations confronted by an empire of evil. Ali Khamenei spent a whole generation of taking his people's resources and directing them towards terror, bloodshed, pain, and horror. And what we are doing here together, all the allies, the United States leading this effort, is to change world situation towards a vision of peace in the region.
Herzog there visiting the site of a deadly Iranian missile strike in Tel Aviv. He says this is not an easy time, but it is a time when the U.S.-Israel joint operation could bring change, and a time when future generations will look back and be grateful. And next, we are speaking with David Wormser, analyst for Middle East Affairs at the Center for Security Policy, for insight on the very latest and this very long history in the Middle East. Starting, though, with the big picture, David, welcome. Where do you see where we're at right now with the conflict?
Well, I think we've gone through the very initial part of the initial phase, which is clearing things out so that there's freedom of the skies. So the American and Israeli air forces now are able to operate without really any bother in the skies of Iran, which means they can really get down to business to doing two additional things. And first is the most urgent being to deal with the missiles. So you are seeing Iran understand that. So they are unloading everything, and you use it or lose it. So rather than lose it, they're going to use it. And that is why you're seeing such an increased pace of missile attacks and the deadly effect, unfortunately, as well. But one has to keep in mind that this is something that is being whittled down, worn down very rapidly by the American and Israeli aircraft in the skies. So it will not be as major a factor in 3-4 days as it is now. The second thing is the Israelis a few hours ago began to shift, and they're focusing now on striking the regime's structures of power, whether it's the media, but more importantly, they are beginning to hit the IRGC structures of repression, the ones that killed the 40,000 Iranians a month ago. They are now ripping into those bases, into those structures, as well as the fact that with the clear skies, they in real time can see movements of those forces of repression and are beginning to strike them too. So now you're beginning to see on the Israelis in Western Iran are beginning really to go after the jugular in bringing down the regime. And my sense is the next day or two will be very dramatic in that respect.
And I do want to take a deeper look at what could come next if the U.S. and Israel are successful in taking out those structures of repression. But first, I'd like to look at a recent post that you made on X in response to the news that Saudi Arabia is agreeing to take military measures against Iran, which you've called a terrible strategic mistake. Can you elaborate on your views here?
Sure. Emotionally, you want anybody to join us who can. And so there's a lot of people who believe if the Saudis have been hit and they want to strike, we should welcome, the more the merrier. But Iran is a master chess player. There's no country in the world that is better at strategy than they are. And they know that the one thing that can frighten their population into falling in line, it probably won't work, but it could. They're going to try it, which is to raise the monster of the Sunni Shiite conflict. Iranians are both Arab and they're Shiites, and on both counts they feel tremendously threatened, existentially so, by the Sunni world and the Arab world surrounding them. So by striking, a lot of people are wondering, why are they striking these countries who are supposedly neutral, or in one case even their ally to some extent? And the answer is they want to provoke a reaction. They want to provoke the Saudis to strike Iran so they can turn around to their own people. And you say, you see, the Americans, they're not operating they are operating on behalf of the Sunni world. This is a Sunni plot to take over Iran and massacre Shiites and Persians. So that is what is behind some of these strikes. This is a long-term effect that Iran has tried several times before, and we have to be very careful. The value added of the Saudis, while I appreciate very much that they'd like to join, the value added right now is very limited compared to what the Iranian strategic game is here. And we need to keep that in mind. We need to keep the Iranian strategy frustrated.
And as we've been sort of looking at here, the Iranian regime is kind of fighting at least two wars right now, both internally and externally. And do you think the masses of the oppressed people who are now coming out, brave enough to come out even, or frustrated enough to come out, that they'll actually believe this rhetoric coming from the regime, talking about division that's already there in a historic sense? But do you think that they'll actually believe the regime?
No, they probably won't believe the regime, but they will be frightened and maybe give pause seeing Sunni aircraft, Saudi aircraft above them. It would worry them. They see that as hostile, and one can't underestimate the deep anxiety and dislike between them. So I think it just adds a dimension that could cause a pause or a moment of hesitation. Even if they know that's what the Iranian government is trying to provoke, there's still that moment of hesitation that it was provoked. But you're right. The Iranian people, they know their government is lying as a habit, and they're quite happy with what's happening. Interestingly, they don't see the Israelis the same way. They don't see the government trying to evoke the idea of a Zionist conspiracy. The Jews are after us. The American great Satan is after us. The Iranians basically react to that at this point with a positive, that it only helps the Iranians feel encouraged to go after the regime rather than shut it down. But the Sunnis are a little bit of a different question.
Okay, so just looking at the fact that Iran is playing this chess game and has attacked many of the Gulf states, what do you think a state like Saudi Arabia should be? How should they respond?
Well, I think the first thing they should do is to inform the United States that anything they need, anything the United States needs to operate from Saudi territory to strike Iran as the American armed forces, Saudi Arabia now will open up and give airspace, everything, so that they play a very important role here in helping us. They don't need to show up over the skies of Tehran. Secondly, it may be a stretch for them, but to do the same to the Israelis, to essentially say you can use our airspace. I'm not sure the Israelis need that airspace at this point, but it would be a signal that the Saudis are all in now to go after the Iranian regime, but in a way that they're sensitive to Iranian sensibilities. So that's what I would do if I were the Saudi government.
And would you advise that to all of the other Gulf states out there that have been impacted already?
Well, the UAE also, but the UAE has already been highly cooperative with the Israelis, the Americans, and the whole effort here. And the second thing is the UAE has longer term relations with the Iranian people. Hasn't been, I mean, it is Sunni, it is Arab, but the Iranians don't feel as threatened from them. Saudi Arabia is a much more significant issue for them. But at any rate, the UAE is not talking about hitting Iran. They're talking about lending all their assets to help the Americans defend against Iran and to strike Iran. So the UAE's there already, and I think they're already giving us what they need. As far as the other countries, Oman is very suspicious. They have been less a mediator and more an advocate for Iran to avoid war. Same with Qatar. And Turkey. Turkey is the most dangerous one involved because they've already said that they may invade northern Iran in order to establish a corridor to prevent refugees. Well, if there's one thing that will get the Iranians nervous, is a Turkish invasion of their territory. So we really need to, in my view, work with the Saudis to cooperate, work with the UAE, but we should try to tell the Omanis, the Qataris, and the Turks, stay out of this. This is not your fight. Stay out of it.
All right, so within Iran's borders, if the regime does truly fail, what's next, especially for the leadership?
Well, the leadership is in deep trouble. They've lost a lot of their assets in the next 24, 48 hours. They're going to lose a lot of the forces that they have at their disposal to crush Iranians. We also forget how much the proxy forces, Hezbollah, the Afghani, those militias that Iran has been using to terrorize the world, to encircle Israel, to dominate nations around them, whether it's Iraq or Syria or Lebanon or Yemen. They have also been used internally as repressive structures because a Yemeni or a Hezbollah from Lebanon will be less hesitant to kill an Iranian than an Iranian would be, even if the Iranian is IRGC. So they've been really core to the repressive structures of the regime. So this destruction of the proxies of Iran is also a critical internal aspect of the Iranian regime survival or lack thereof. So I think that's one of the things the Iranian regime is really terrified of here, losing its proxies and losing its IRG forces. So even if the war stopped, say in 96 hours, 72 hours, it's quite possible the regime is so weakened that in a repeat of what happened in January, they simply won't have the assets to crush it the way they did. And then you really could see the end of the regime.
Last 30 seconds, David. How realistic is it that Reza Pahlavi, the Shah's son, often called the Crown Prince of Iran, actually takes over as the interim leader here?
Well, I think he could take over as a symbol, not as a leader. He's not really built for operational control of the country, but he is an important symbol of unity and secularism. The Iranians want to get rid of their Islamic regime. He's a link to the historic past, evoking Persian glory. Those symbolic things are incredibly important at this point, but he's not the one who's actually going to run the show. But he's also a litmus test. If the Iranian regime that emerges afterwards is not fake, sort of a fake regime change, people in the regime, they would have to accept him as the symbolic government of Iran, and that's an important sort of smoking out whether there really is a new regime or not, or whether it's kind of fake. A few moderates that we think are moderate but are really selling us a bill of goods.
Grateful to be watching these events unfold with you today, David Wormser. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in major strikes on Iran by the United States and Israel. What's next? We have more news and analysis shortly. Stay tuned.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
For the first time ever, we're bringing you MyPillow mattresses and mattress toppers for as low as $99.98. Remember, sleep's all about temperature and pressure points. Whatever sleep needs you have, we have the right technology for you. Like our MyPillow mattress topper, our queen size has over 10,000 individual comfort supports to help relieve your pressure points. And how about our 3-inch Hybrid Plus mattress topper? It's infused with copper and silver to help your body get the restorative sleep it needs. And our MyPillow and Case Coil mattresses, I personally helped develop these mattresses to make sure they have everything needed to give us great sleep. Plus, they're made right here in the USA, and they ship right to your front door absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to get MyPillow mattresses and toppers for as low as $99.98 and free shipping.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Or how did I get here?
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
And it's just past 7 p.m. in Tel Aviv, and you're watching our live special coverage of the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. We're looking live at Jerusalem right here. President Trump says he's just been informed that the U.S. destroyed and sunk 9 Iranian naval ships, some of those being what Trump referred to as relatively large and important. Trump said the U.S. military is going after the rest of Iran's Navy ships. In a separate attack, U.S. and Israeli forces largely destroyed Iran's Navy headquarters. The news came after U.S. forces struck an Iranian corvette, that's a small warship, during the start of the operation with Israel. And in a post on X, the U.S. Central Command said the ship is sinking to the bottom of the Gulf of Oman. The post repeats President Trump's earlier message saying members of Iran's armed forces, the IRGC, and police must lay down their weapons. The post ends with the words, "abandoned ship." U.S. Central Command also posting on X that Iran's claim it struck the USS Abraham Lincoln is a lie. The post says the aircraft carrier was not hit and that Iran's missiles didn't even come close. And a historic first on some of the combat vehicles used in Operation Epic Fury. The United States Central Command announcing the first time use in United States military history of one-way attack drones. NTD's Washington correspondent Mario Tzu has the details.
This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is touting Operation Epic Fury as the most lethal, most complex, and most precision aerial operation in history. He says, quote, "The Iranian regime had their chance, yet refused to make a deal, and now they are suffering the consequences. For almost 50 years, Iran has targeted and killed Americans, always seeking the world's most powerful weapons to further their radical cause. Last night, unlike any previous president, President Trump began dealing with this cancer. We will not tolerate powerful missiles targeting the American people. Those missiles will be destroyed, along with Iran's missile production. The Iranian Navy will be destroyed, and as President Trump has said his entire life, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. The United States did not start this conflict, but we will finish it. If you kill or threaten Americans anywhere in the world, as Iran has, then we will hunt you down and we will kill you. Our warriors are the best in the world, and they are fully unleashed to achieve our objectives. May God's providence protect them in this vital mission." And Admiral Brad Cooper, CENTCOM commander, says, quote, "The president ordered bold action, and our brave soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen are answering the call." Central Command is also announcing a historic first. That its task force, Scorpion Strike, for the first time in history, is using one-way attack drones in combat during this operation. CENTCOM says, quote, "These low-cost drones, modeled after Iran's Shahed drones, are now delivering American-made retribution. Before this, the Pentagon mostly relied on high-end missiles such as Tomahawks for big strikes. Those are reusable, expensive, and piloted remotely. These new ones, though, called Lucas, Low-Cost Unmanned Combat Attack System, are disposable. They fly one way, slam into the target, and explode like flying bombs or kamikaze drones. In short, the U.S. is taking a page from Iran's playbook, taking cheap technology that Iran has exported to cause chaos and using it against the regime. CENTCOM also giving us details on the timing of the strikes, saying that U.S. and partner forces began striking targets at 1:15 a.m. Eastern to dismantle the Iranian regime's security apparatus, prioritizing locations that posed an imminent threat. Targets included Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps command and control facilities, Iranian air defense capabilities, missile and drone launch sites, and military airfields. U.S. officials are saying that the U.S. is focusing on military targets, on ballistic missile sites, and on anything that could pose an immediate threat, while the Israelis are targeting Iran's leadership. Central Command is also countering claims the Iranian regime has been making in the wake of these strikes. The IRGC claims that a U.S. Navy ship was struck by missiles. However, CENTCOM says no U.S. Navy ship has been struck. The Armada is fully operational. And the Iranian regime is claiming severe damage at multiple U.S. bases. However, CENTCOM says damage to U.S. installations was minimal and has not impacted operations. Reporting by Mario Tsu, NTD News.
Thanks for tuning in to our live special coverage of the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. We'll have more coverage in the next hour. I'm Stephanie Cox. Stay tuned.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
It's just past 8 p.m. in Tel Aviv, and you're watching our live special coverage of the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. We're looking here live at Jerusalem, and the skies there. Good afternoon. It's March 1st. You're watching NTD's special coverage of the U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran. I'm Stephanie Cox. 3 U.S. service members have been killed in action as part of military operations against Iran. In a statement today, U.S. Central Command says 5 others were seriously wounded. The announcement confirms that major combat operations continue. The identities of the soldiers will not be released until next of kin are notified. And Israel and Iran are trading strikes today. The war now widening after the killing of Iran's supreme leader in the U.S.-Israel joint operation. Meanwhile, President Trump warning against retaliation from Iran. And President Trump saying he's just been informed that the U.S. destroyed and sunk 9 Iranian naval ships, some of those being what President Trump referred to as relatively large and important. Trump said the U.S. military is going after the rest of Iran's Navy ships. In a separate attack, U.S. and Israeli forces largely destroyed Iran's Navy headquarters. The news came after U.S. forces struck an Iranian corvette, that's a small warship, during the start of the operation with Israel. In a post on X, U.S. Central Command said the ship is sinking to the bottom of the Gulf of Oman. The post repeats President Trump's earlier message saying members of Iran's armed forces of the IRGC and police must lay down their weapons. The post ends with the words, "abandon ship." U.S. Central Command also posting on X that Iran's claim it struck the USS Abraham Lincoln is a lie. The Post says the aircraft carrier was not hit and that Iran's missiles did not even come close. Breaking development now on the ongoing U.S.-Israel operation against Iran. The IDF says all senior terrorist leaders of Iran's axis of terror have been eliminated. The Israeli military posting on X the names of the officials killed so far. Israel says among the 40 commanders killed was the chief of staff of the Iranian armed forces. And an Israeli media outlet reports that a former Iranian president was also killed. The Israeli Air Force posting video footage showing the destruction of the regime's headquarters in Tehran. The IDF says these are the first strikes under Operation Roaring Lion, their name for this operation. Iran's president says a new leadership council has begun its work following the death of the supreme leader. It says the council will continue the path of the country's previous leadership. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, says the Israeli Air Force is intensifying strikes in the heart of Tehran. Take a listen.
Yesterday, we eliminated the tyrant Khamenei. Together with him, we eliminated dozens of senior officials in the regime of oppression. Our forces are now striking in the heart of Tehran with growing intensity. And this will only increase in the coming days.
Netanyahu saying Israel is bringing the full force of its defense forces as never before, with the help of the U.S. He says the combination of forces enabled them to strike the Iranian regime, something he had hoped for 40 years. Israeli President Isaac Herzog now urging the people of Israel and the entire region to stay strong during this historic effort to reshape the Middle East.
This is a historic effort to change the trajectory in the Middle East to a different future, a future of peace. We've been for generations confronted by an empire of evil. Ali Khamenei spent a whole generation of taking his people's resources and directing them towards terror, bloodshed, pain, and horror. And what we are doing here together, all the allies, the United States leading this effort, is to change world situation towards a vision of peace in the region.
Herzog is visiting the site of a deadly Iranian missile strike in Tel Aviv. He says this is not an easy time, but it is a time when the U.S.-Israel joint operation could bring change, and a time when future generations will look back and be grateful. Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, killed in major strikes on Iran by the United States and Israel. What's next? We have more news and analysis shortly. Stay tuned.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
Tired of struggling with that heavy leaf blower? Introducing the Bullseye Power Blower. It delivers a massive blowing force, and yet it's so compact and lightweight. Just lock and load the rechargeable battery for long-lasting runtime. The secret is the compact turbocharged motor with jet burst technology that blasts out 21,000 RPMs of airflow. Watch this. The sheer force propels this woman across the pool. Look, use Bullseye to blow up a huge jump house. Now that's power. Even blows snow right off your vehicle in no time. Turbo clean your porch in a flash or tidy up your dirty garage floor in seconds. Get it today for just $99.99. But wait, act now and get a $20 discount. So it's only $79.99. Plus, you'll get the adjustable extension tube. Yours free. And it all comes with free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-209-2313 or go to bullseyeblower.com. That's 1-800-209-2313 or order online at bullseyeblower.com. Order now.
It's just past 8 p.m. in Tel Aviv, and you're watching our live special coverage of the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. We're looking here at Jerusalem. And now that Iran's supreme leader and many of the regime's top officials have been taken out, how is the Chinese Communist Party viewing the operation against Iran? Joining us now live is Feng Suo Zhou, Executive Director of Human Rights in China, who was also a leader of the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests in China. Also with us, Michael Lucci, founder and CEO of State Armor. Thank you both so much for joining us today. I'll start with you, Feng Suo. How is the CCP looking at the situation of U.S. and Israel strikes on Iran right now?
Well, CCP is shaking and moaning. You know, they call this guy the dictator, their great old friend, and they call his killing murder, where the Chinese netizens erupt into celebration. If you see on Twitter, even in the websites within China, people are celebrating the downfall of a dictator who killed so many to keep this rule of brutality. And of course, people are thinking about Tiananmen and all the brutalities of CCP when they are looking at this and drawing the parallels.
Yeah, do you think those parallels especially hitting home, considering that the leader, the supreme leader, Khamenei, was actually appointed in 1989 on June 4th?
Yes, exactly. And people are noticing this, and they are celebrating for that reason. This is a great day for people who are suffering from the dictatorships.
Do you think they're actually drawing some level of inspiration here, considering some of the parallels between the two regimes?
Of course, many are praising the courage of the Iranian people. Despite all the senseless killings, they just have kept their spirit high, both in the internal uprisings and in the external advocacy. We are friends with many of them, different groups here, local in San Francisco, in New York, and in Paris. Yes, they are very inspiring for Chinese people.
Yeah, and
who
we're just
are looking forward to this day in China. Actually, there's a famous song in China that's called "It's a Pity That It's Not You," and that's being banned in China because so many people are trying to use that song to celebrate, referring to, of course, the eventual downfall of Xi Jinping.
Wow, the communist regime there even banning that phrase. That seems to be a sentiment then that is really rearing its head there and could precipitate something further. But Michael, you posted on X that the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, is deploying activists in New York City to oppose strikes on Iran. What do you know about that?
We saw this incredible contrast where Iranian Americans in New York, in Los Angeles, across the country, took to the streets to celebrate the end of this butcher in Tehran, this leading sponsor of global terrorism in Tehran. So the Iranian Americans are celebrating, but then all these nonprofits funded, connected to, and associated with the Chinese Communist Party were also immediately in the streets protesting against that decapitation strike on the Iranian regime. So it's this incredible contrast where the Iranians think that this is a good thing, the Chinese Communist Party thinks it's a bad thing. And the reason they think it's a bad thing is because their geopolitical strategy runs through controlling Tehran and Caracas. And the United States has removed those Chinese Communist Party aligned leaders of Caracas and Tehran. That's also 1 out of 3 barrels of oil that the Chinese Communist Party depends on came from those two sanctioned regimes. So they're deploying their foot soldiers from the People's Forum, from Code Pink, from the Answer Coalition to agitate within the United States on behalf of the murderers in Tehran, because that's their geopolitical strategy and they have that propaganda element within the United States.
Yeah, incredible to see how this war can so quickly transpire outside of even the Middle East. But with the China-Iran relationship here, they have a 25-year comprehensive strategic partnership. And a big part of that is China buying cheap oil from Iran, which, of course, evades U.S. sanctions and helps both regimes out immensely. How do you see this latest attack shifting the dial here for both regimes?
Well, obviously, for the Iranian regime, many of these leaders are killed. We'll see how this turns out over the next couple weeks and months. For the Chinese Communist Party, which has made no pretense about its intentions to attack and invade Taiwan, they're going to have to think twice or 3 times about the capabilities of the United States military and about their own ability to source imports of oil from places like Iran. Iran's actually the #1 source of oil for the Chinese Communist Party. More than 1 in 5 barrels come from Iran, and they get that at a discount because that's sanctioned and they use a shadow fleet to get it. The same thing they did with Venezuela. So China needs to think twice about its ambitions to attack its neighbors because the United States is increasingly exerting control on China's external supplies of oil.
And does the Chinese regime have other options to replace that oil, such as from Venezuela, say?
Well, I mean, Venezuelan oil runs through the United States now, so it's going to be hard for them to get that. They're becoming increasingly dependent upon Russia, and they want to get more and more oil from Russia because most of the other people they get oil from are much more aligned with the United States. And the ones who weren't are no longer being led by, say, the terrorists in Tehran or the narco-terrorist in Caracas, Maduro. So the Chinese Communist Party is seeing its ability to source external oil supplies very much put in jeopardy by the United States, its Air Force, its Navy, and its ability to take out terrorist leaders of these countries.
Yeah, I guess the U.S. Would not necessarily approve of oil being sold to China through Venezuela, but even if it was, it would be much more expensive than what they're paying right now to Iran. Feng Suo, if it means huge spikes in oil prices worldwide after this attack, how does that impact people in China?
I think Michael has explained it well. CCP rely on Iran for strategic supply, especially if there is a war. So this is really great news for Taiwan, for the people who love peace and freedom all over the world. The prospect of a war against Taiwan is much reduced with the downfall of this Iranian regime.
Yeah.
That's another reason why Chinese people are celebrating now.
It will
It's
also
just
raise
a great time.
prices. It'll also raise prices for people within China, presumably, and already the economy there is under a lot of pressure, and of course that's then also putting pressure on the regime. Sounds a little like something that's been happening in Iran. What do you see about the parallels there and the potential economic pressure?
Yeah, the economy has been really going down, persistently, driven by the deflation in the housing price that basically eliminate many of the people wealthy from the middle class, and especially the unemployment situation among young people is very severe. I think we're probably talking about 30-40% there. That's why we're seeing increasing activities of resistance online, even within China. Despite all the surveillance, the risk of being punished, and this regime cannot last long, and their only hope is to export more, and that rely a lot, on the cooperation of countries like European countries. For now, I think United States has greatly reduced the import from CCP China. I think that's great development there. They cannot sustain this so-called economic miracle, and people are suffering. We are hearing it, and it's very similar to the situation in Iran.
Yeah, and talking about that aspect of exporting goods and the experience of Chinese on the ground, Michael, looking at this further, especially in regards to oil, because China pays for the oil, or has been paying for the oil that it's getting from Iran with Chinese goods, and they're exchanging also in yuan. And so they're paying for it with yuan, but then Iran buys Chinese goods. So it kind of creates this kind of loop within the two economies. But if that is now disrupted, how much do you think it will further hurt the economy in China?
It'll certainly hurt the economy within China, which is already suffering, as has been mentioned here. The Chinese Communist Party relies greatly on an export machine. They actually set up a lot of their surveillance technologies, Hikvision, Huawei, and all of these surveillance technologies within Iran to help Iran surveil, suppress, and murder its own people. And that is also an export play by the Chinese Communist Party. So they also want to get the world to be willing to accept their currency, the renminbi or the yuan, for oil payments. And the fact that Iran, is the regime that was willing to do that, is no longer going to be in charge of Iran, is going to very much impugn upon China's ability to source oil outside of the United States dollar. If they're in the United States dollar, then we could actually cut off their ability to pay for those. If they want to do it outside the dollar, it's going to become harder and harder if the Iranian terrorists are taken down here.
So what's the potential timeline, as you see it, for a potential for really catastrophic impacts on China?
Well, China's economy has been grinding in deflation for a couple years now, ever since their property market collapsed. They're relying upon exports of Chinese technologies, and they're relying on imports of underpriced oil. China was paying around $10 per barrel below market price for this Venezuelan and Iranian oil. They're also paying below market for Russian gas and oil supplies. So they're going to have a higher cost of production because of that. That will make them less competitive on exports. And increasingly, the world doesn't like China dumping its surpluses within the United States, where we're already clamping down on it. But our allies are now facing that, export machine from communist China, and they don't want their own industries wiped out. So as all these free countries of the world begin to block those underpriced Chinese goods, subsidized Chinese goods, it's going to become even more of a grind on the Chinese economy.
Feng Shuo, let's look at the Chinese communist regime and how it's kind of trying to spin what's happening in Iran. You mentioned a little earlier, but let's dig into that.
I think there's another aspect that's very interesting because many of the CCP propagandists they see this as a proxy war for United States against CCP's weaponry, which they hope are exporting to the rest of the world. The fact that they couldn't withstand the attacks from Israel, and so I think that basically deflates all the boast of CCP, and that's very important aspect because they are trying to exaggerate their production strengths in advanced weaponry, especially with the target of taking over Taiwan by brutal force. So that's another aspect that Chinese citizens are really celebrating now. It definitely it's great news for the peace.
Certainly been increased concern over those ambitions to take over Taiwan. In terms of the regime's stability itself, how important is stability in the Middle East to the Chinese Communist Party?
CCP has been growing their influence all over the world. They rely on the oil and the conflicts of Middle East. That's where they put a lot of efforts. So a lasting peace after the downfall of this Iranian regime would be great news for the world peace and prosperity. On the other hand, it will greatly diminish CCP's ability to take advantage of this situation. Michael mentioned that CCP is using Code Pink and all these so-called NGOs to plant conflicts within the United States. And the conflict in Middle East, that's their favorite ground for such actions. We have seen that everywhere, even within the Chinese diaspora community, we've seen clearly that CCP is trying to weaponize the conflicts in the Middle East to create infightings within the democracy movement. And they use this as an opportunity to attack the American democracy, for example. So this is really great news if we see lasting peace in Middle East.
And lastly, Michael, anything you want to build on there, and also anything you think might be missing from the conversation more broadly about this conflict as it regards the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, the one thing I would build on is that we have Chinese Communist Party agents, media, and NGOs within the United States, and they were so rapid to respond to this that they were actually putting out notifications before President Trump announced the strikes. So they were already calling for boots on the ground in New York, in Los Angeles, and elsewhere to oppose American foreign policy. And these are organizations that the State Department recently said are directly tied to and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. So we need to begin to sanction entities that are tied to the Chinese Communist Party. We need to impose foreign agent transparency laws on these agents as well. And we need to really start to cut the legs out from under their propaganda machine, just like we're cutting the legs out from their energy infrastructure.
Feng Suozhou, Michael Lucci, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, killed in major strikes on Iran by the United States and Israel. What's next? We have more news and analysis shortly. Stay tuned.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor and help save even more lives. Thank you.
For the first time ever, we're bringing you MyPillow mattresses and mattress toppers for as low as $99.98. Remember, sleep's all about temperature and pressure points. Whatever sleep needs you have, we have the right technology for you. Like our MyPillow mattress topper, our queen size has over 10,000 individual comfort supports to help relieve your pressure points. And how about our 3-inch Hybrid Plus mattress topper? It's infused with copper and silver to help your body get the restorative sleep it needs. And our MyPillow and Case Coil mattresses, I personally helped develop these mattresses to make sure they have everything needed to give us great sleep. Plus, they're made right here in the USA, and they ship right to your front door, absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to get MyPillow mattresses and toppers for as low as $99.98 and free shipping.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
Yeah, so there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
What's happened to this world we're living in? Why?
For the 4 years he has been on this earth, he has known nothing but war.
Wherever I go, the things I see, I just want to turn away. The dreams I have, the stories I could tell, will they still be possible? This year, more than ever, I need a brand new world, a clean world. Where I can improve myself and be inspired. My stage can be anywhere and everywhere. But it begins.
Ganjing World, a brighter way of life.
It's past 8 p.m. in Tel Aviv, and you are watching our live special coverage of the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. Right here, you're watching a live feed of Jerusalem. The U.S. and Israel continuing their military operations as the conflict with Iran intensifies. In Washington, lawmakers are celebrating the death of the Ayatollah, but clashing over continued operations. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us live. Jack, good to see you again. How are lawmakers responding to all this?
Well, it's as expected. Lawmakers are falling along party lines here, mostly Republicans praising as the comments roll out here, Democrats condemning President Trump's decision on this. That's even though most Democrats are in favor of a regime change in Iran. And we're having breaking news on the ground right now. President Trump writing on Truth Social minutes ago saying that the U.S. has sunk 9 Iranian naval ships and largely destroyed the regime's headquarters. I'm going to read out the whole thing here. I have just been informed that we have destroyed and sunk 9 Iranian naval ships, some of them relatively large and important. We're going to after the rest. They will soon be floating at the bottom of the sea. Also, in a different attack, we largely destroyed their naval headquarters. Other than that, their Navy is doing very well. Now, so we have a lot to report on here, and we'll bring it to you as it rolls out. President Trump telling Fox earlier today that 48 Iranian leaders have been killed in the strikes. Prior to the start of Operation Epic Fury, congressional Democrats and Republicans in that gang of 8 were briefed. Secretary of State Marco Rubio briefing almost all of them, 7 of 8. Here's what they're saying now.
Iran was refusing to even come to the table on a nuclear agreement in regards to not enriching, and also there were actual missiles posing a direct threat. They're producing 100 a day directed at our service members, and there was intelligence to prove that they were intentionally undermining the negotiations that were taking place.
Iran massacred 30,000 of their own people right now. This war is not about the Iranian people. It's about this poisonous regime. And that's why I'm proud to stand with our military. I'm proud to stand with Israel, too. I might be a Democrat, but in this specific case, the president is absolutely correct to do these kinds of actions. How many treaties, how much negotiation? I never thought they would work. Iran has only ever responded to these kinds of things.
I'm not against regime change in Iran.
I just want to make here the case that we should risk a lot of American lives to achieve that. The Congress decides whether we go to war or not the president.
I think the president made the right choice. And he gave them obviously plenty of notice that there was a timeline, whether he should have come to Congress. There's been a lot of conversations, and I'm sure we'll have those conversations again soon. I don't think that he needed to for this initial action to be taken place. We've seen former presidents make, these decisions and move ahead.
And Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling on Congress to return to Washington as soon as possible to get a vote on that war powers resolution that would limit President Trump's authority to conduct these strikes. Some Democrats aren't confident that'll happen, but we do have Congressman Tom Massey and Congressman Ro Khanna forcing a war powers resolution to the floor later this week. Steph.
And Jack, we're seeing demonstrations across the country celebrating the death of the Ayatollah and calls for regime change as well. What's the latest on that?
Right, as the day rolls on, we're seeing more and more demonstrations coming out, with one just happening now at the UN headquarters in New York. But we have some right here outside of the White House and across the country in Los Angeles, favoring the U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran taking place across Iran, right here in the U.S. So they're all seeking pro-regime change, and they're celebrating the death of the Ayatollah. Take a look.
People that are on the outside need to understand that we've been the first victims of the Iranian regime's brutality for almost 50 years. So we know the brutality that we have to deal with the government that's in Iran that does not represent the people. We don't want a theocracy anymore. We want the separation of church and state. We want democracy, the end of terrorism, and we want the world to pay attention and be with us. And the leaders of this movement, which is Reza Pahlavi, the Crown Prince of Iran, has made it absolutely clear that the only way forward is a transition where the Iranian people can have a referendum and vote for a democratic system that's free and clear of religious ties.
And here at the White House, they're flying the POW MIA flag right above the White House underneath the American flag. That's as the U.S. Central Command today saying that 3 U.S. service members have been killed in action and 5 others seriously wounded as part of Operation Epic Fury. Several other service members sustained minor shrapnel injuries and concussions, but are in the process of being returned to duty. Steph?
Yes, and our thoughts are with the families of those fallen heroes. Thank you so much, Jack Bradley. Next, people in Iran and across the globe celebrating the death of former Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. You've heard some of that happening in the U.S., but we're also looking abroad. They're taking to the streets. They're singing, chanting, and in some cases toppling monuments. Here are the highlights.
Eyewitness video shows crowds in the Iranian town of Galadar toppling a monument dedicated to the Islamic Republic's founder, Ayatollah Khamenei. Flames are seen rising from the roundabout, with onlookers cheering as the monument falls. Khomeini overthrew the last Shah of Iran in the 70s, making Iran an Islamic republic. Before that, the country was open and friendly to the West. The United States, the UK, and many other countries were doing business with Iran. This stopped after the country became an Islamic republic, led by Shia clerics. In the Iranian city of Karaj, near the capital city of Tehran, residents are now taking to the streets in celebration after the death of the so-called supreme leader Khamenei. They're seen playing cheerful music, shouting, and celebrating. And residents of Iza in Iran's Khuzestan province are celebrating as well. They're waving pre-revolutionary Iranian flags and setting off fireworks. The pre-revolutionary flag, used before the Islamic Revolution, has become a symbol of opposition to the current regime.
Thanks for tuning in to our live special coverage of the U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. We'll have more coverage in the next hour. I'm Stephanie Cox. Stay tuned.
If you love them enough to drive an hour to cheer them on as they get beat 11-0 in the rain, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Throw that ball, Diane. Woo! You got this.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Hi, I'm Jane Seymour, and I spent years on TV playing a doctor. But I learned about the heartbreaking reality of heart disease and stroke when they touched my own life. My father nearly died before having a quadruple bypass and valve replacement that saved him. And my mom, who was my inspiration, suffered a stroke that took away her speech, her ability to move, and ultimately her life. To see someone so vibrant, so positive, who'd survived so much in life, be debilitated by a stroke, it was devastating. And also a wake-up call. And that's why I'm so passionate about supporting the American Heart Association. They're doing more every day to stop needless deaths. But they simply can't do their life-saving work without you. So please, call now or go to helpheart.org. And for only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, your donation will go to work to do amazing things. Like fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I hope that you'll open your heart right now and join me. Please, call now or go to helpheart.org. Give $19 a month and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can proudly wear to show that you're part of a community of monthly donors who are helping save lives. A healthy heart, it's the spirit of life. It makes it possible to do the things that you love, to spend time with your friends and family and fulfill your life's dreams. But so many won't have that chance. Heart disease is America's #1 killer and the #1 killer of women. And that's why I'll do whatever I can to make sure others don't die from heart